Chapter 39-25. Hearing Ren Ziheng's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest couldn't help but look at each other. They had long heard of this point. Thinking about it, in such a dangerous training ground, if the inner palace disciples didn't help each other, the casualty rate would be even higher. In the next moment, Ren Ziheng and Chu Jinfeng quickly rushed towards Su Yingxue and the rest. Following Ren Ziheng and Chu Jinfeng's actions, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest didn't delay any longer and immediately followed closely behind them. When Su Yingxue and the rest who were running for their lives saw Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest start to move, a ray of hope appeared on their faces. "Yingxue, junior brother Mo and the rest are here to save us," He Bingrui said excitedly. Su Yingxue nodded excitedly, "Luckily they aren't far from where we are. Now we're saved. This Mo Yinjue isn't as cold as we thought. At least he's still willing to help us. Who knows, maybe it's because of you." He Bingrui smiled. Hearing that, Su Yingxue was slightly stunned. She couldn't help but look at Mo Yinjue who was rushing towards them and said, "That shouldn't be the case. If he really had feelings for me, he wouldn't have been so cold before. A cold person like him would naturally be like that on normal days. However, it's different at this crucial moment. Anyway, I believe you'll definitely be able to capture him." Su Yingxue's face flushed red as she said happily, "I hope that's the case." The speed of Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest was very fast. In a few blinks of an eye, they had already arrived beside Su Yingxue and the rest. Martial techniques were instantly executed from their hands and attacked the skeletons behind them. Boom! Boom! A series of earth-shattering sounds resounded as dazzling martial skills were displayed. Multicolored lights blossomed, illuminating the entire night as if it was daytime. Under this attack, the skeletons instantly turned into dust and disappeared without a trace. As Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest joined the battle, the situation of Su Yingxue and the rest eased up a little. Instantly, they felt the pressure lessen, and the sense of urgency dissipated. "Ren Ziheng, thank you," someone in Su Yingxue's team who knew Ren Ziheng expressed his gratitude. They weren't as muddle-headed as Su Yingxue. They had clearly noticed that it was Ren Ziheng and Chu Jinfeng who had taken the initiative before Mo Yinjue had come to help. Ren Ziheng waved his hand and said, "We're brothers from the same sect. If you're in danger, we'll naturally come to help. There's no need for thanks. If it weren't for your support, I'm afraid we would have been completely annihilated here today. In short, we will remember this kindness in our hearts. If you need our help in the future, just let us know. You are welcome." After the 6 people in Su Yingxue's team got out of their predicament, they didn't continue to flee. Instead, they started to attack the skeleton army. After all, their goal in coming to the training grounds was to deal with these dead things. Only by killing them would they be able to obtain the corresponding points. Bailey Hongzhuang casually executed martial techniques to attack the skeletons with an indifferent expression. Chapter 39-26. In the team, only Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichen, and Mo Yinjue had broken through to the Starlight Realm, so it was naturally easy for the 3 of them to deal with the skeletons. However, it wasn't so easy for Shengguan Yingying and the rest. After all, the difference in strength between them and the skeletons wasn't very big. As such, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 2 became the main force. Whenever they noticed someone in danger, they would immediately help and resolve the predicament. Even though Su Yingxue had been an inner hall disciple for quite some time, her cultivation wasn't very strong. Therefore, she couldn't help but fall into a predicament when dealing with the skeletons. Just as she was about to let the skeletons get close to her, an attack suddenly blossomed beside her and got rid of the skeletons that got close to her. Seeing this scene, Su Yingxue couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief and subconsciously looked at the person who had attacked. When she saw that the person who had attacked was Mo Yinjue, she couldn't help but be elated. Mo Yinjue had actually helped her. Once she thought of this, Su Yingxue couldn't help but feel excited. As a result, the skeletons got close to her again when she was distracted. Mo Yinjue attacked once again. After helping her solve this problem, he flashed and went to help the other cultivators. Su Yingshue's cheeks flushed red as an indescribable joy blossomed in her heart. For the first time, she felt that the training ground wasn't that disgusting. On the contrary, she really liked the feeling of fighting. When Shengguan Yingying noticed that Su Yingxue had actually started to daydream, she couldn't help but remind her, Su Yingxue, if you continue daydreaming like this, you might lose an arm or a leg in the next second. She also admired Su Yingxue for being able to be distracted at a time like this. Mo Yinjue was indeed handsome and charming. He was a very famous person in the outside world, so it was normal for young girls to like him. However, there weren't many people who could still be infatuated with him in the middle of a battle. Hearing Shengguan Yingying's reminder, Su Yingxue came back to her senses. Her expression became a little awkward and she could only nod her head. Only then did she raise her spirits to deal with the skeletons. Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and Bai Shi were not idle either. They all ran out of their chaos rings to help out in the battle. It wasn't just them. Di Beichen and the other two's contracted beasts weren't idle either. They all came out to fight alongside their masters. None of the 6 contracted beasts were of low grades, and their appearance together was extremely shocking. Su Yingxue and the rest looked at this scene in a daze. Although they already knew that Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest had contracted beasts, they still couldn't help but sigh when they saw them. The scale was simply too astonishing. Not only Su Yingxue and the rest, but Ren Ziheng and the other 2 also had deep envy in their eyes when they noticed this scene. They had been inner palace disciples for quite some time, but it was a pity that they still hadn't obtained their own contracted beasts. It was truly a pity. Only disciples who had outstanding performances in the inner palace could obtain contracted beasts. In comparison, although they had developed quite well in the inner palace, they hadn't reached an extremely outstanding level, so they didn't have the qualifications to obtain contracted beasts. Chapter 39-27. Among the 6 contracted beasts, Bailey Hongzhuang's 3 contracted beasts were the strongest. After all, they had been cultivating with Bailey Hongzhuang for a long time. The other 3 contracted beasts were born not long ago. Even though Long Yanwei had used methods to speed up their growth, they still needed some time before they could truly grow up. Even so, the battle prowess they unleashed was not weak. Yingxue, I heard that Mo Yinjue also obtained a contracted beast. I wonder which one belongs to Mo Yinjue. He Bingrue couldn't help but ask after noticing the appearance of the 6 contracted beasts. She was really envious of cultivators who had contracted beasts. Su Yingxue couldn't help but look at the 6 contracted beasts. She then shook her head, I don't know. However, I believe that his contracted beasts should be very strong. Ren Zimei, who was standing beside Bailey Hongzhuang, couldn't help but ask, Junior Sister Bailey, what is Junior Brother Mo's contracted beast? Dark Magic Fox. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled, the Dark Magic Fox is still at Master Long's place to speed up its growth. It didn't come this time. I see. A look of understanding appeared on Ren Zimei's face, the Dark Magic Fox is a very rare demonic beast. I didn't expect Junior Brother Mo to have such a contracted beast. This is something that makes people envious. Senior Sister Ren, you will all have one in the future. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Let's hope so. Just as everyone was focused on dealing with the skeleton army, they suddenly realized that the skeletons behind them were no longer ordinary skeletons. Instead, they were skeleton soldiers. Not good. Ren Ziheng frowned as a solemn expression appeared on his face. From the looks of it, the number of skeleton soldiers that are about to appear is quite large. Everyone should be more careful. Those who are weaker, it's best to back off a little. This way, even if you encounter danger, you will still have a chance to escape. The eyes of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others fell on the skeletons in the rear. These skeletons were different from ordinary skeletons. They were also wearing armor, and their majestic appearance was different from ordinary skeletons. Senior Sister Ren, what is the strength of these skeleton soldiers? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. The appearance of the skeleton soldiers did not exceed her expectations. Earlier, Ren Ziheng had already warned them that the strength of the skeleton soldiers they encountered would greatly increase as they ventured deeper. At the same time, the strength of the skeletons would also increase. On the outside, the skeleton soldiers are generally at the 5th level of the Purple Realm. Depending on the geographical location, the strength of the skeleton soldiers varies. The skeleton soldiers I met last time were at the 6th level of the Purple Realm. Now that we're in a place that's even deeper than the last time I was here, they might be even stronger than the 6th level of the Purple Realm. We can only understand this after we fight with the skeleton warriors. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded lightly, reminding everyone, the strength of these skeleton soldiers is not simple. Be careful when dealing with them. At this moment, the three beasts approached Bailey Hongzhuang from the periphery, looking like they were ready for battle. However, when this group of skeleton soldiers appeared, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were surprised to find that although these skeletons were dead, they were very orderly. Chapter 39-28. I never thought that these skeletons would be so orderly. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I would have thought that these skeletons were all dead creatures and were leading the soldiers. Wen Ziren's eyes flickered with curiosity. Even though he had seen all this before, he still felt that these skeletons were very mystical. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others felt the same way. Indeed, the order displayed by these skeletons is beyond our expectations. Why do we care so much? They're already charging towards us. Let's just kill them. Shangguan Yingying shrugged her shoulders. She did not care about the skeletons' behavior at all. All she wanted was to kill more skeletons in exchange for more points. Now, she only had one thought, and that was to raise her cultivation level as quickly as possible so that she could catch up to Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. No matter what, they were a team. If they continued to lag behind, they would need the protection of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. This was not what she wanted. If she wanted to raise her cultivation level as quickly as possible, cultivating in the cultivation area was an excellent way. However, it would consume a lot of points, so she needed to earn more points. Hearing Shangguan Yingying's honest words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others laughed gently before nodding in agreement. You're right, the most important thing now is to destroy these fellows. In the next moment, the Yuan power within Bailey Hongzhuang's body burst forth. She flipped her hands and a martial skill quietly formed. She then attacked the skeleton soldier without hesitation. To catch bandits, first catch the ringleader. This principle was the same regardless of the time. The skeleton soldier was undoubtedly much more agile than the average skeleton. When it saw Bailey Hongzhuang's attack, it quickly retreated. However, what shocked Bailey Hongzhuang was that she realized that the skeleton soldier was also able to use martial skills. She could not believe it. How could this be? Bailey Hongzhuang stared in astonishment at the scene before her. She had been fighting with the skeletons until now and realized that these skeletons could only use their own strength to fight. They did not know how to dodge or use martial skills. However, this skeleton soldier was actually able to use martial skills. How could she not be astonished? Not only did Bailey Hongzhuang discover this scene, but Ren Ziheng and the others also discovered this, and suddenly they couldn't help but be dumbfounded. Senior brother Ren, have you encountered such a situation before? Wen Ziren asked aloud. Ren Ziheng shook his head. No, I've never encountered this before. Although the skeleton soldiers we've encountered in the past were much stronger than the average skeleton, we've never encountered a skeleton soldier who could use martial skills. What's going on today? Chu Jinfeng's face flickered with doubt. Clearly, he couldn't believe all of this. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at the same time. It seems that it is not only the Lich that has evolved, the skeleton soldiers have also evolved. Di Beichen calmly said. Ren Ziheng's eyes were filled with seriousness. You mean that these skeleton soldiers can only use martial skills after they've evolved? Apart from this reason, I can't think of any other reason. Di Beichen's eyes were deep and complicated. According to this situation, the skeleton army will become stronger and stronger in the future. The pressure on the cultivators will also increase. Chapter 39-29. Following Di Beichen's words, everyone's heart could not help but sink. If the situation was really like this, then they would be under a lot of pressure in the future. How can these skeleton soldiers use martial skills? That's too strange. Shengguan Yingying's face flashed with a puzzled look. Could it be that they practice martial arts together like us? Bailey Hongzhuang pondered and shook her head. Perhaps the martial arts that these people mastered before they died are still engraved in their bones after they died, so they can use it now. As soon as she said this, everyone was slightly stunned. After thinking carefully, they felt that Bailey Hongzhuang's words did make some sense. In that case, there is indeed a possibility. Look, the martial skills that these skeleton soldiers are using are different. If they use the same martial arts, then when they move together like this, they must use the same martial arts, Ren Ziheng said in a deep voice. When we go back, we must quickly report this news. Di Beichen slowly said, in the future, everyone can't choose where to stay based on their previous judgment. We must retreat a little because the strength of these skeletons is no longer what it used to be. The strength of the skeleton soldiers had increased. If everyone still chose the location based on their previous experience in the future, they would definitely be at a disadvantage. The number of cultivators in the Penglai Palace's inner hall was not many, so they could not afford such a loss. Everyone sighed faintly. The skeletons in the training ground were already a headache for everyone. Now that even the skeleton soldiers had evolved, it would be even more troublesome in the future. Let's not think about this for now. Let's deal with the current situation first, Di Beichen said. Everyone only sighed with emotion for a moment, then wholeheartedly entered the battle state. The skeleton soldiers that used martial arts were very difficult to deal with, especially when the level of the martial arts that some of the skeleton soldiers used was not low. When Xiren and the others all felt a lot of pressure. In comparison, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two were more relaxed. After all, the Astral Radiance Realm and the Purple Realm were no longer the same concept, and their strength far surpassed that of Wen Xiren and the others. As a result, the three of them had to put in extra effort during the battle. Not only did they have to deal with their own opponents, but they also had to help others deal with the skeleton soldiers. Under the leadership of the skeleton soldiers, even the ordinary skeletons' battle prowess increased. Large numbers of skeletons fell in the hands of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others and were completely crushed. Now, they deeply felt the threat of this skeleton army. They had to completely destroy it and absolutely couldn't allow it to recover. When the skeleton soldier saw how powerful Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were, it knew that it was no match for them. Immediately, it slapped the ground as if it was summoning something. Looking at the same movement of the skeletons in front of them, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other, not knowing what the other was summoning. Master, these skeletons are really getting stranger and stranger. What they do is really like an army. It's amazing. Xiao Hei's eyes were filled with amazement. The last time they saw almost all the ordinary skeletons, there were only a few skeleton soldiers, so they completely did not notice this uniform military style. Chapter 39-30. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Indeed, we haven't been here for a few months. I didn't expect the skeleton army to have such a huge change. It's really unbelievable. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but look at Di Beichen beside her. Her black and white eyes flashed with a complicated light. She slowly said, "Beichen, I keep feeling that something is wrong." Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with the same gaze and said in a deep voice, "I have a guess. There should be something extraordinary in this training ground that caused the skeleton soldiers and the lich to evolve." Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly stunned. Then her eyes widened, revealing a trace of surprise and shock. "You're right. There must be a reason for the skeleton soldiers and the lich's sudden evolution. It's impossible for them to evolve for no reason. If there really is something that's promoting their evolution, it must be something extraordinary. We have to find this thing as soon as possible. Otherwise, if this continues, even the ordinary skeletons will evolve." "That's right." Di Beichen nodded, "We have to find that thing. However, this training ground is extremely large. I'm afraid it will take some time to find it." Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were exchanging views, the skeleton soldiers also stopped moving. Then, they saw the lich crawling out of the pit. "So these skeleton soldiers are actually summoning the lich." Xiren said in a deep voice, "From this situation, the lich is an existence that is one level higher than the skeleton soldiers. 1, 2, 3, 4. Heavens, how many liches are going to appear?" Shang Guanying was very calm when she saw the appearance of the lich. However, when she noticed that the number of lich was increasing, she could no longer maintain her calm. Last time, they only encountered 4 lich. It was already very difficult to deal with them. Now, there were a total of 8 lich. Once they thought about the scene of the demonic chant, they felt a headache. Su Yingxue and the rest were completely stunned when they saw this scene. They had never seen so many lich before. Why are there so many lich? Su Yingxue's face was filled with shock. Once these lich chant, the strength of the skeletons will increase. With 8 lich stacked together, the effect is extremely shocking. He Bingrui's face was a little pale. However, after noticing Mo Yinjue and the rest at the side, she calmed down. At least, with 3 cultivators at the Star Radiance realm and above, their safety would be greatly increased. Otherwise, if they encountered such a situation, she would definitely run. "Yingxue, you are one of the very few cultivators who are good at sound attacks. Take advantage of today's opportunity to perform well and let Mo Yinjue see you in a new light." He Bingrui's face revealed a trace of a smile. This was an opportunity that the heavens had specially created for Su Yingxue. "Bingrui, what time is it now? You still have the mood to think about this." Su Yingxue shook her head helplessly. However, she couldn't help but look at Mo Yinjue. Chapter 39-31. Compared to Mo Yinjue, she couldn't help but feel that she wasn't as good as Mo Yinjue. Now, cultivators who were good at sound attacks were very popular in Penglai Palace. Because of this, her status in the inner palace had greatly increased and she had become a popular figure. No matter which team it was, they would think of ways to invite her to the training grounds. If she could show her outstanding side in front of Mo Yinjue today, perhaps Mo Yinjue would have a whole new level of respect for her. When she thought of Mo Yinjue, her heart couldn't help but thump. Following the appearance of the lich, the chanting sounds quickly resounded. Immediately after, everyone realized that the skeleton army seemed to have received a huge boost from the chanting and their tyrannical abilities instantly exploded. Seeing this scene, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others realized that the combat power of the skeleton army had definitely increased and it wasn't easy to deal with them. "Wife, we'll have to rely on you to deal with this lich," Di Beichen said with a smile. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. If other stronger skeletons appeared, she might be a little worried. However, she wasn't afraid of this lich because her zither technique was coincidentally able to restrain the lich's chanting. However, she also wanted to know how much the strength of these skeletons would increase with 8 liches chanting together. However, at this moment, the sound of a flute rang out. This wasn't a simple flute sound. It contained offensive power and directly countered the lich's chanting. Noticing this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but turn her gaze. Previously, she had only heard that there were very few cultivators who were good at sound attacks in the inner palace. She didn't expect to encounter one right away. Su Yingxue is actually good at sound attacks. A hint of astonishment appeared in Shangguan Yingying's eyes. She really didn't expect this. Ren Zimei nodded. There aren't many cultivators who are good at sound attacks in the inner palace, and Su Yingxue is one of them. Ever since everyone knew that sound attacks could restrain the lich's chanting, Su Yingxue's status in the inner palace greatly increased, and there are many people chasing after her. I see. Bailey Hongzhuang revealed a look of understanding. Encountering a lich was definitely a nightmare for an ordinary party. However, if there was someone in the party who could restrain the lich, the chances of victory would be greatly increased. Hearing Su Yingxue's low voice, Bailey Hongzhuang understood. Even though Su Yingxue had mastered sound attacks, she was still lacking in this aspect. If it was only 1 or 2 liches, Su Yingxue would still be able to deal with them, but there were 8 liches and their combined chanting was extremely powerful. It wouldn't be so easy to deal with them. Su Yingxue held a green flute in her hand, and beautiful sounds kept coming out, affecting the lich's chanting. However, she also realized that it was too difficult for her to deal with these 8 liches with her current strength. At most, she could only affect the frequency of their chanting, but it was impossible for her to stop the effect of their chanting. Once a lich appears, only a cultivator skilled in sound attacks will be able to counter it. As He Bingrue spoke, she couldn't help but look at Mo Yinxue. Yingxue is one of the few cultivators who are skilled in sound attacks in the inner palace. Hearing He Bingrue's words, Ren Zimei and the rest couldn't help but look at each other. Chapter 39-32. Hongzhuang, from the looks of it, not only has Su Yingxue not given up on Mo Yinxue, she seems to be even more infatuated with him. Shangguan Yingying's eyes sparkled with interest. Mo Yinxue had always been a bachelor in their team. If she could help Mo Yinxue find a suitable woman, that would be pretty good. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. Previously, when Yunju made his move, his swift and decisive style was probably even more attractive to her. It's not strange for her to have such a reaction. No matter if it was in the past or now, Mo Yinxue had always been the object of adoration of many women. Just like Di Beichen, even though she was already by his side, there were still many women who secretly threw flirtatious glances at Di Beichen. They saw all of this, but no one paid any attention to it. Hearing this, Shangguan Yingying curled her lips. Even so, I still feel that Yunju is so outstanding, so there should be a very outstanding woman who is worthy of him. Although this Su Yingxue looks not bad, she's still a little lacking. Things like love depend on fate. It doesn't have much to do with one's own conditions. As long as they like each other, it's fine, Bailey Hongzhuang replied. Her gaze couldn't help but turn towards Mo Yinxue. If Mo Yinxue could really have a woman who could warm him up, that would be extremely good. As if he felt Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze, Mo Yinxue also turned his gaze over. Those eyes that were as deep as a black hole were still sparkling with deep affection for her, but he suppressed it in the depths of his eyes. To him, no one in this world could compare to Bailey Hongzhuang. She was the only one who was different in this world. Bailey Hongzhuang retracted her gaze. In her heart, she understood that Mo Yinxue still hadn't let go. She still felt indebted to him. Su Yingxue was waiting for Mo Yinxue to pay attention to her, but never would she have thought that Mo Yinxue would turn his gaze to Bailey Hongzhuang. She couldn't help being stunned, and her expression became complicated. Could it be that Mo Yinxue liked Bailey Hongzhuang? She then looked at Di Beichen, who was standing beside Bailey Hongzhuang, and erased the thought from her mind. Impossible. Bailey Hongzhuang was a married woman, and Mo Yinxue and Di Beichen were friends. It was impossible for something like this to happen. Su Yingxue tried her best to execute sound attacks, but she realized that the chanting of the liches was simply too strong. She couldn't even suppress a part of it, which was completely different from what she had encountered in the past. There are simply too many liches. Let's retreat a little, Su Yingxue couldn't help but say. Bailey Hongzhuang also realized that under the chanting of the liches, the normal skeleton's strength had increased by 2 levels. The skeleton soldier's strength had also increased. It seemed that the more liches there were, the more the skeleton's strength would increase. If a large number of liches were to appear, she couldn't imagine the situation. From this scene, she could determine how strong the faction that controlled the power of darkness was. It was no wonder that so many factions had attacked together. Such a faction was a heaven-defying existence the moment it appeared. Other people would have to pay quite a hefty price to recruit cultivators, but they could only summon dead things, so there was no need to worry about that. In comparison, it was as if they had unlimited helpers. It was truly terrifying. Chapter 39-33. Ding! Bailey Hongzhuang waved her 5 fingers and the sound of a zither poured out. Following the sound of the zither, the liches chanting paused for a moment. Su Yingxue looked at the source of the sound in astonishment. When she realized that it was Bailey Hongzhuang, her eyes flashed with intense astonishment. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang took 2 steps back and sat between Di Beichen and Mo Yinjue. Her 10 fingers fluttered and the sound of the zither poured out continuously. The crisp sound of the zither was melodious and pleasant to the ears. Compared to the chanting of the lich was suppressed. Under the suppression of Bailey Hongzhuang's zither sound, the strength of the skeleton, which had increased by 2 levels, was reduced to 1 level. The 8 liches' original target was Su Yingxue. When they realized that Bailey Hongzhuang was the powerful opponent, they all turned their attention to Bailey Hongzhuang. An endless stream of elemental energy poured into the zither sound. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a hint of sternness. Thinking back, she didn't put too much effort into the art of zither. However, ever since she knew that the art of zither had a restraining effect on the lich, she specially put more effort into it. Now, her art of zither was much more adept than before. In addition to the increase in her strength, the effect naturally couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. As the elemental energy poured in, everyone realized that the power of Bailey Hongzhuang's zither sound had increased again. Wherever the sound of the zither passed, the skeletons would turn into ashes as if they had been hit by a heavy blow. Seeing this scene, Di Beichen and the rest had a hint of astonishment in their eyes. They didn't expect that in such a short time, Bailey Hongzhuang's art of zither would have such a huge improvement. How could they not be surprised? Wow, junior sister Bailey's zither sound isn't ordinary this time. It's much more destructive than the previous time. Ren Zimei's face was filled with shock. Before, when she saw that Su Yingxue was unable to deal with it, she had thought that Bailey Hongzhuang and Su Yingxue together would be able to deal with it. But looking at the current situation, as long as Bailey Hongzhuang was alone, she would be able to deal with it. Ren Zimei nodded in admiration. Junior sister Bailey's improvement is indeed astonishing. In such a short time, her battle power is already on a different level. They thought that their improvement was already not bad, but compared to Bailey Hongzhuang, there was still quite a gap. This was the training of geniuses. Su was Bailey Hongzhuang's art of zither sound. Furthermore, from the current situation, it could be seen that Bailey Hongzhuang's wasn't ordinary as music was hers. Compared to Bailey Hongzhuang, her sound attack was like displaying her slight skill in front of an expert. Her sound attack could only suppress 2 liches at most, but Bailey Hongzhuang could suppress 8 liches at the same time. This showed the difference between the two. Yingxue, I didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang's art of zither to be so powerful. Isn't this a little too terrifying? He Bingrue was also dumbfounded. She originally thought that Suing Xue was the only one in their team who had such an ability, so she could use this chance to perform well. She didn't expect that there would be someone who was so good at art of zither. It was simply an eye-opener. Chapter 39-34. Bailey Hongzhuang tried her best to cover the chanting and suppress the skeleton army's cultivation. Under her tyrannical elemental energy, the skeleton army in front of her returned to their original state. The skeletons at the back that were closer to the liches were unable to be suppressed. Luckily, everyone was only in contact with the skeletons at the front. Once the skeletons at the back advanced, they would fall into the range of Bailey Hongzhuang's zither sound. As a result, the skeletons that everyone was fighting with had the same strength as before. There were no changes to the existence of the liches. Not only that, Bailey Hongzhuang's zither sound's destructive power was also very strong. A large number of skeletons fell down and it was very shocking. The three beasts had also joined the battle once again. Everything was the same as before and there were no changes. When Suing Xue saw this scene, she was instantly embarrassed. For a moment, she didn't know if she should continue playing the flute or directly join the battle. After all, Bailey Hongzhuang had already suppressed 8 liches by herself. There was no meaning for her to continue playing the flute. Furthermore, although her flute sound had a certain effect on suppressing the liches chanting, its destructive power wasn't strong and it didn't have a very good effect. After thinking about it, Suing Xue still silently put away her flute and joined the battle. Wave after wave of skeletons fell down. The points obtained by Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were also continuously increasing. Ren Zimei and the rest couldn't help but reveal a smile on their faces. If it was any other time, they could only quickly escape when they encountered such a situation. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two were in the team, the situation was completely different. They were completely able to handle such a situation. Furthermore, the speed at which they killed the skeletons was extremely fast. They felt very satisfied. I really hope that I can break through to the Star Radiance realm quickly. This way, we won't have to be so strained to deal with these skeletons like before. Chu Jinfeng couldn't help but express his feelings. Hearing this, Ren Zimei smiled and nodded. That's natural. It's just that it's not that easy to break through to the Star Radiance realm. I hope that we can all reach it as soon as possible. If everyone in their group had reached the Starlight realm, just thinking about the scene of the battle caused them to feel excited. When the 8 liches saw that their chanting was countered by Bailey Hongzhuang, they immediately used all of their skills, hoping to break Bailey Hongzhuang's zither magic. Bailey Hongzhuang also felt this point. The power of the liches singing together was much stronger than the last time. If she hadn't been practicing the zither these days, she probably wouldn't have been able to restrain this scene. To be honest, if she hadn't seen the liches chanting ability, she wouldn't have thought that there were so many ways to fight with the zither. Come to think of it, this was one of the benefits she learned from the lich. No matter how hard the 8 liches tried, they were unable to break through Bailey Hongzhuang's line of defense. After a fruitless attempt, the 8 liches chose to give up and returned to the pit. Following the retreat of the 8 liches, the skeleton soldiers and skeleton army immediately stopped fighting and began to return to the pit. Seeing this scene, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest increased their attack power, trying to kill more skeletons. After the living skeletons retreated back into the pit, the ground was once again flat as if nothing had ever happened. Chapter 39-35. As all the skeletons retreated back into the mine, everyone could not help but heave a sigh of relief as they slumped onto the ground. Fortunately, they took the initiative to retreat. Otherwise, if the battle continued at such a high intensity, even I would not be able to hold on. Wen Ziren could not help but sigh. Although their cultivation had increased slightly compared to before, the strength of these skeletons was not weak either. They had been continuously using martial arts techniques, and the rate at which their yuan qi was depleted was also very fast. During this process, they had even taken elixirs to replenish their yuan qi, but in the end, the supply could not meet the demand. In a short battle, they could still maintain their energetic state, but if the battle dragged on, they would not be able to hold on. After all, the number of skeletons was endless. In terms of taking turns to fight, they definitely could not be compared to these skeletons. Yes, thanks to junior sister Bailey's zither technique, we were able to successfully restrain the 8 liches. They felt that they could not win, so they retreated. Ren Zimei's face was filled with a smile of admiration. Usually, when we fight with these skeletons, they don't leave until dawn. Today can be considered as the easiest battle. It was all thanks to you guys that we were able to do it. The battle power of a Starlight Realm practitioner is indeed extraordinary. It made me envious. Chu Jinfeng sighed. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest smiled slightly. They also felt that today's battle was not bad. Junior sister Bailey, I feel that your zither technique this time seems to be much stronger than before. Ren Ziheng could not help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang with a trace of curiosity in his eyes. Previously, he had seen Bailey Hongzhuang use her zither technique with his own eyes, but it was not as powerful as today. If the zither technique had such an effect, then they would not have been in such a difficult situation. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Ever since the previous incident, I have focused on cultivating the zither technique. During this period of time, it has been quite effective. In addition to the improvement of my cultivation, the effect is naturally much better than before. I see. Ren Ziheng praised, you can even restrain the 8 liches. This is really extraordinary. If it was any other time, we could only surrender when we encountered 8 liches. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were talking, Su Yingxue and the rest slowly walked to the side of Bailey Hongzhuang's team. Ren Ziheng, thank you for your help this time. Xiao Wenyu clasped his hands and said. Xiao Wenyu, you're too polite. This is what we should do. Ren Ziheng smiled. Xiao Wenyu's eyes turned to Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two. I have long heard that Di Shidi's strength is extraordinary. Seeing it with my own eyes today is an eye-opener for me. Senior brother Xiao is too praiseworthy. You. Xiao of Bailey's of the zither technique of liches. If I too, I of it, I would not believe it. If I of it, of Bailey to be. To the two. I just happen to have mastered the zither technique. Fortunately, I was able to help a little. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a lotus-like smile. To them, saving people was just a matter of convenience. Coincidentally, they also wanted to kill skeletons, so they acted together. Chapter 39-36. Following Ren Ziheng's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest nodded their heads. Since the skeletons didn't get any benefits today, they naturally wouldn't appear in the same place again, so they could relax and have a good rest. Su Yingxue and He Bingrue looked at each other and slowly walked to a place closer to Li Mo and Yunju to sit down. When everyone entered a state of cultivation, Su Yingxue couldn't help but look at Mo Yunjue. She saw that Mo Yunjue had already closed his eyes and started to cultivate to recover. Her expression was a little complicated. She was a little shy and a little vexed. She was shy because the person she adored was right beside her, and vexed because Mo Yunjue didn't have any reaction towards her. She clearly knew the meaning behind her purposely sitting closer to Li Mo and Yunju, but the latter acted as if he didn't see her, making her feel helpless. Yingxue, as long as Mo Yunjue is a block of ice, he still doesn't have any reaction even though we are already sitting here. He Bingrue frowned, her expression filled with helplessness. Any man would have understood such an obvious gesture of goodwill, but Mo Yunjue acted as if he didn't see it at all, so how could she not feel helpless? That's just how he is. Su Yingxue sighed, the last time I went to invite him, he was also this cold. He Bingrui's gaze wandered between Mo Yunjue and Su Yingxue as she slowly said, "Sigh, everything about Mo Yunjue is good, but his personality is too cold. I'm afraid it won't be easy for you to melt this block of ice. I believe he won't feel nothing. Although his personality is very cold, there are some benefits. This way, he won't be too entangled with other girls, which I think is pretty good." Su Yingshue's face was filled with a joyful smile. Looking at Mo Yunjue's side profile with his eyes closed, she only felt that he was even more handsome. Everything around her seemed to have faded into the background. Only Mo Yunjue's appearance was deeply imprinted in her heart, causing her heart to beat wildly. In my opinion, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. No matter how bad he is, you still think he's good. But if it really happens, I think you two are very compatible. He Bingrui smiled and said, "Why don't you find a chance to have a good chat with him later and get closer to him?" Hearing this, Su Yingxue pondered for a moment before sizing up Mo Yunjue and saying, "Let's wait until my essence energy recovers." The thoughts of Su Yingxue and the rest weren't hidden from everyone's eyes. In fact, based on Su Yingshue's current performance, everyone knew that her heart was already attached to Mo Yunjue. It was just that Mo Yunjue hadn't expressed his feelings yet. Compared to the joy of Su Yingxue and the rest, Xiren couldn't help saying, "In my opinion, senior sister Su is probably going to be happy for nothing." "Why?" Shangguan Yingying asked curiously. Yunju obviously doesn't have any feelings for her. It's just that she can't see it. Xiren shrugged his shoulders. Although this girl looks pretty good, she's only average. There's obviously a gap between her and Yunju, so such an outcome is very normal. Chapter 39-37. When Xiren subconsciously looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Mo Yunjue liked women like Bailey Hongzhuang. Just from this point, it could be seen that Mo Yunjue's taste was not bad. In this world, women as outstanding as Bailey Hongzhuang were rare. Su Yingxue looked not bad, but if she was compared to Bailey Hongzhuang, she would be thrown far behind. Therefore, since Mo Yunjue liked Bailey Hongzhuang, it could be seen that he would definitely not like Su Yingxue. Unless he was provoked. However, from the current situation, Mo Yunjue was not provoked. On the contrary, he was still very clear-headed, so it was impossible for such a situation to happen. It was a pity that Su Yingxue did not realize this point. However, from the coldness that Mo Yunjue revealed, it would not take long for Su Yingxue to realize the truth. Everyone fell into a state of cultivation. And it was just as everyone had expected. The whole night passed peacefully. No more skeleton army came out of the forest. When the sky gradually brightened, everyone opened their eyes one after another. The elemental energy in their body had recovered and their mental state had recovered to its peak. Yesterday, we also killed quite a number of skeletons. The number of points is not small, Shangguan Yingying said with a smile. The main reason they came here to train was to obtain points. After all, they could train in other places, but points could only be obtained in the training grounds. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Indeed, the harvest is quite bountiful. That's because you guys are here. In addition, there are quite a number of people this time, so there is no need to escape. Therefore, the harvest is not bad. Otherwise, if it was any other day, we would have to retreat after fighting for a while. Naturally, the points would be less. Chu Jinfeng shrugged his shoulders. In the past, it was not easy for them to obtain points. Even if they stayed in the training grounds for half a month, the number of points they obtained was not much. However, this time, with Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest, the number of points they obtained from this battle was quite a lot. Speaking of which, this was the benefit of having power. Jinfeng is right. If it was any other day, it would take us a few days to earn these points. Ren Zimei chuckled, looking at your battle power, I really hope that I can break through to the Starlight Realm quickly. At that time, when we meet these damn skeletons, we will not be so restrained. Go for it, senior sister Ren, Bailey Hongzhuang said with a faint smile. Since we have recovered, let's set off. Di Beichen said. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest nodded their heads. The appearance of the skeleton army was random. However, they had suffered a loss this time, so they probably would not appear here again at night. They might as well find a suitable place nearby. All right. Ren Ziheng stood up immediately, let's go. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were about to leave, Su Yingxue suddenly stood out and said, wait. Hearing this voice, everyone could not help but stop in their tracks. They looked at Su Yingxue in astonishment, not knowing what she wanted to do. Mo Yinjue also looked at Su Yingxue. A tinge of annoyance flashed past his eyes that were as deep as black holes, but he did not open his mouth. Chapter 39-38. Our team suffered quite a bit of damage after what happened last night, so there are only 6 of us left. If we only rely on the few of us, it will be very dangerous here. Su Yingxue bit her lips with a bashful expression. I have a presumptuous request. I wonder if I can form a team with you guys for the time being. Seeing this, He Bingrue immediately said, Yingxue is right. We won't be able to find other teams in such a short period of time, so it's really dangerous here with only 6 people. If you guys don't mind, can you form a team with us for the time being? As she said this, He Bingrue couldn't help but give a look to the leader of their team, Xiao Wenyu. Xiao Wenyu was still in a daze at first, but he immediately reacted and nodded his head. Ren Ziheng, we didn't expect to encounter such a situation yesterday and lose nearly half of our members. If you guys don't mind, can you help us? We definitely won't cause any trouble. He didn't expect Su Yingxue to take the initiative to mention this matter, but after thinking about it carefully, if they could really form a team with Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest, it would undoubtedly be great. After all, there were 3 Starlight Realm cultivators in the team, so their battle power would greatly increase and their safety would be guaranteed. Just like what Ren Zimei and the rest had said, if it weren't for Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 2, they would definitely have been forced to flee in all directions by the skeletons. It would have been impossible for them to earn more points, and it would have been good enough if they didn't get injured. It was because of this that he envied Ren Zimei and the rest. It was a pity that he wasn't familiar with Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest, so he couldn't form a team with them. Since Su Yingxue had suggested this, he naturally didn't mind going with the flow. If they agreed, it would be beneficial for them. Hearing Xiao Wenyu's words, Ren Ziheng couldn't help but frown. He didn't expect them to come up with such a suggestion. He couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest, asking, what do you guys think? Although he was in the same team as Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest, and as the senior brother, he was also the team leader in name, they knew clearly that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 2 were the backbone of the team. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other, and their expressions were a bit complicated. They weren't stupid. Su Yingxue suddenly mentioning this matter might be because of safety, but the main reason was that she wanted to get close to Mo Yinjue. This way, they couldn't make a decision for Mo Yinjue. After all, the other party had come for Mo Yinjue and had nothing to do with them. Looks like this senior sister Su is quite persistent. Shang Huaninging lowered her voice and sighed in Bailey Hongzhuang's ear, isn't it said that her standards are very high, and that she usually ignores all men trying to please her? Why does it look completely different now? That's because the man chasing after her isn't that outstanding. If it was Mo Yinjue, the situation would be different. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Mo Yinjue was naturally not someone an ordinary man could compare to. This Su Yingxue was also courageous to chase after someone she liked. Di Beichen and the rest fell into silence. Su Yingxue and the rest couldn't help but look at Mo Yinjue. They naturally understood that Mo Yinjue's attitude was the most important. Chapter 39-39. Su Yingxue's gaze towards Mo Yinjue was filled with anticipation, and her heart was beating wildly. This was the first time she had taken the initiative, and she had no choice. It was not easy for her to have the chance to interact with Mo Yinjue, and if she missed it just like that, who knew when she would be able to find such a chance again. Compared to Su Yingxue's anticipation, Mo Yinjue's expression was only cold. "Junior brother Mo, what do you think?" Ren Ziheng asked with some difficulty. It wasn't that he wanted to push the problem to Mo Yinjue, but since Mo Yinjue didn't express his opinion, he didn't know how to answer. In fact, whether Su Yingxue and the rest were there or not didn't affect him at all. "We already have quite a number of people in our team," Di Beichen said indifferently. The moment he said that, Su Yingxue and the rest couldn't help being stunned. Even though Mo Yinjue didn't reject them directly, what was the difference between that and rejecting them directly? Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest looked at each other in dismay. They had not underestimated the degree to which Mo Yinjue didn't give them any face. Su Yingxue would definitely feel terrible to be rejected so directly. Su Yingxue's face turned pale. Even though she had thought that Mo Yinjue might not have any feelings for her, she didn't expect Mo Yinjue to reject her so straightforwardly. No matter what, she was still a woman, and he should at least give her some face when rejecting her. However, Mo Yinjue wasn't even willing to give her face. He Bingrue's expression also became ugly, and her gaze towards Mo Yinjue was filled with indignation. "Mo Yinjue, we are from the same sect after all. Can't we just help? Even though our abilities can't be compared to yours, we won't be a burden. As long as we find another team, we will immediately leave. You don't have to be so petty, right?" With He Bingrue's words, the atmosphere immediately changed. No one had thought that He Bingrue would suddenly explode. It had completely exceeded their expectations. However, in the face of He Bingrue's anger, Mo Yinjue acted as if nothing she said was directed at him. His expression was still cold and casual. To him, these people in front of him were just strangers. There was no need for him to pay attention to them. When Ren Ziheng saw this scene, he couldn't help but say, "Junior Marshal sister He, calm down." Junior Marshal brother Mo just casually said something. "You don't have to be so angry." However, He Bingrue's anger had been completely ignited, and it wouldn't dissipate for a while. "What I said is the truth. The cultivators of Penglai Palace have always helped each other in this training ground. He is a man, but he is so stingy. How can I not be angry?" He Bingrue's face was filled with anger, and her chest heaved up and down. According to her thoughts, no matter how she looked at it, Mo Yinjue couldn't possibly refuse. However, this guy actually did. "Ren Ziheng, we have no choice but to make this presumptuous request. We really don't have any other thoughts." Xiao Wenyu couldn't help but speak up. Normally, it wasn't easy to earn points, and he wasn't willing to give up such a good opportunity. Moreover, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were currently in the limelight. If they could be on good terms with them, it would be a great thing. Chapter 39-40. After noticing Ren Ziheng's helpless look, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but say, "Senior brother Ren, you're our team leader. We'll leave it to you to decide whether to agree or not. We have no objections." To them, rejecting He Bingrue and the others had no effect at all. If they wanted to reject, they would reject. After all, there was no friendship between them. However, Ren Ziheng was different from them. Ren Ziheng and the other two had stayed in Penglai Inner Hall for a long time and were very familiar with the cultivators in the hall. They must have a certain friendship with Xiao Wenyu and the others. If they rejected at this time, it would undoubtedly damage their friendship. On the contrary, whether Xiao Wenyu and the others followed them or not didn't have any effect on them. It was better to leave the decision to Ren Ziheng. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but look at Mo Yunjue. She saw that Mo Yunjue's expression was gentle. As long as it was Bailey Hongzhuang's decision, he didn't have any objections. She then turned her gaze to Di Beichen. Di Beichen also nodded quietly. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Ren Ziheng couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang gratefully. If Bailey Hongzhuang hadn't said such words, he would really be at a loss today. If that's the case, let's team up for the time being, Ren Ziheng said. As soon as he said that, Xiao Wenyu's face also revealed a smile. He immediately cupped his fists and said, "Thank you. We definitely won't cause any trouble." "You're welcome." Ren Ziheng cupped his fists and said, "Xiao Wenyu, with your strength, you can handle things independently. Naturally, you won't cause any trouble." Then, everyone set off on their journey together. However, compared to the joy of Xiao Wenyu and the others in the team, Su Yingxue and He Bingrui didn't have such feelings. Both of them were extremely depressed. Su Yingxue lowered her head along the way. She didn't expect that her initiative to treat him with such infatuation would only be met with Mo Yinjue's indifference and disdain. He actually rejected him so straightforwardly. Even if he was just a cultivator he had never met before, he shouldn't have such an attitude. "Bingrui, do you think Mo Yinjue hates me?" Su Yingshue's beautiful face was slightly pale, and her hands clenched into fists under her sleeves. An indescribable feeling of grievance and unwillingness exploded in her heart. He Bingrui's expression was also very complicated. Previously, they had thought of everything very well, but Mo Yinjue's attitude just now had undoubtedly poured a bucket of cold water on them, causing their hearts to turn cold. "I don't know either." He Bingrui shook her head. Perhaps this has always been his personality. However, isn't this a little too cold? Moreover, he doesn't give any face to women at all. It's no wonder that so many women in the inner palace have expressed their goodwill, but none of them have succeeded. Come to think of it, there shouldn't be many women who can withstand Mo Yinjue's cold treatment and still remain passionate. Previously, she only felt that Mo Yinjue's personality was cold, and there was also some arrogance in it. After all, geniuses were arrogant. However, from the situation just now, Mo Yinjue was completely unapproachable. Su Yingxue sighed. Indeed, it's hard to imagine why he would be so cold. Luckily, he's not only like this to me. Chapter 39-41. Hearing He Bingrui's words, doubt flashed through Su Yingshue's eyes. That's right, from their actions, their relationship seems to be very good. Mo Yinjue isn't so cold when he's talking to other people. On the contrary, he seems to be very easy to get along with. He Bingrui nodded. Just now, Mo Yinjue had already rejected us, but when Bailey Hongzhuang spoke, he didn't refute at all. On the contrary, he seemed to agree with Bailey Hongzhuang's decision. It's really inconceivable. I really don't understand this. Su Yingxue frowned. She couldn't help but think of the gaze Mo Yinjue had when he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. She couldn't help but lower her voice. "Bingrui, do you think Mo Yinjue likes Bailey Hongzhuang?" He Bingrui couldn't help but be stunned. She then shook her head. How is that possible? If that's really the case, then Mo Yinjue and Di Beichen are love rivals. How can they get along so well? Then why is Mo Yinjue so nice to Bailey Hongzhuang? Su Yingxue was a little jealous. If Mo Yinjue's attitude was cold to all women, it would be fine. However, not only was he not cold to Bailey Hongzhuang, he was very gentle instead. She couldn't see any trace of coldness, which made her a little gloomy. I heard that it's hard for people with such cold personalities to become friends with others. However, once they become friends, they treat each other with absolute sincerity. Come to think of it, this is the reason why Mo Yinjue is so nice to Bailey Hongzhuang. Furthermore, from what I see, not only is he nice to Bailey Hongzhuang, his attitude towards Shangguan Yingying is also very friendly. Don't let your imagination run wild, He Bingrue said. Hearing He Bingrue's words, the gloominess in Su Yingshue's heart lessened. You're right. If everything is as you say, then I can't give up. If I can really walk into Mo Yinjue's heart, then he will definitely treat me very well, right? He Bingrue frowned and said hesitantly, even if that's the case, it's not an easy thing to walk into his heart. You have to be mentally prepared. This fellow didn't give any face when he rejected people. That kind of rejection wasn't a good feeling. If it happened a few more times, her courage would be destroyed. I can do it. Su Yingshue's heart, Su Yingshue nodded her head, since Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest can do it, I believe I can do it too. Looking at Su Yingshue's confident look, He Bingrue's expression became complicated, but she could only agree helplessly. Good luck. She had been friends with Su Yingshue for so many years, so she naturally understood Su Yingshue's personality very well. Usually, men would fight to coax her, so she was already used to such treatment. Now that she was rejected by the other party, she might be able to accept it once or twice, but if it happened too many times, she definitely wouldn't be able to accept it. However, looking at Su Yingshue's excited expression, she didn't want to dampen her enthusiasm. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked to Mo Yinjue's side with an apologetic smile on her exquisite face. Yinjue, I'm sorry. Did my decision bring you trouble? Chapter 39-42. In the end, this trouble was caused by me. Instead, it was me who made things difficult for you. Mo Yinjue's expression was gentle. His deep and dark eyes lit up the moment he saw Bailey Hongzhuang. In this world, only Bailey Hongzhuang was his ray of sunshine. She was his sun. Hearing Mo Yinjue's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression relaxed a little. Actually, this matter doesn't affect us much. It's just that senior brother Ren and Xiao Wenyu seem to have known each other for a long time. It's not good for senior brother Ren to reject him like this. However, since you're so handsome, it's normal for you to attract the admiration of girls. If this is considered trouble, I'm sure many people would want to get into trouble like this. Mo Yinjue chuckled. Unfortunately, I don't think so. To him, other than Bailey Hongzhuang, he didn't want anyone else. Everyone else was just a burden. If there wasn't anyone else, he would feel more at ease. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. If these words were said by another man, she might not believe them. However, since this person was Mo Yinjue, she believed them. With Mo Yinjue's cold personality, getting close to an ordinary person would be troublesome for him. Thinking back, when she first met Mo Yinjue, he was clearly seriously injured. However, he still looked indifferent, as if life and death didn't affect him much. She never thought that their accidental acquaintance would end up like this. Seeing Mo Yinjue and Bailey Hongzhuang chatting happily, Su Yingshue's expression couldn't help but become complicated. This was because she noticed that Mo Yinjue's smile towards Bailey Hongzhuang was indescribably gentle. Compared to his usual cold appearance, he was like a completely different person when facing Bailey Hongzhuang. It was unbelievable. Su Yingshue kept getting rid of the thought that shouldn't have appeared in her mind, but it still popped up uncontrollably. Could Mo Yinjue be so nice to everyone he was familiar with? However, she clearly felt that the way Mo Yinjue looked at Bailey Hongzhuang was exactly the same as the way she looked at him. At this moment, Di Beichen slowly walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. His handsome face was somewhat heavy. He looked at Mo Yinjue and said, Yinjue, Hongzhuang and I have a guess. Hearing this, Mo Yinjue's face flashed with a hint of seriousness. What guess? There must be a reason why the skeleton army suddenly had such a huge improvement. It's impossible for them to improve so much for no reason. Therefore, we feel that something incredible must have appeared in this training ground and accelerated the evolution of the skeletons. Mo Yinjue pondered and nodded. What you said makes sense. It's impossible for them to improve for no reason. What do you think it is? We haven't thought of this point yet, but if it appeared, it must be in this training ground, Di Beichen said solemnly. So you guys plan to look around here? I don't know what it is, but there's nothing around here. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. Not only was she looking for the thing that caused the skeletons to evolve, she was also looking for something that could restrain the power of darkness. Unfortunately, she didn't find anything along the way. Chapter 39:45. Hearing Di Beichen's words, Bailey Hongzhuang also nodded. I'm really curious, what kind of things can be produced in this training ground? This world is so magical, anything can be produced. Anything that appears in this place full of dark energy must be related to dark energy. I just hope it's not something evil. Di Beichen sighed. I hope so. Bailey Hongzhuang replied, but this training ground is very large. If this thing is hidden very well, it won't be easy to find it in a short time. Indeed. A smile appeared on Di Beichen's lips. We are just passing by to take a look. If we can find it, that would be the best. If we can't find it, if there really is such a thing, others will definitely notice it. That's true. Bailey Hongzhuang's mood suddenly relaxed a little. There were many cultivators who came to this training ground, someone would definitely notice it. Xiao Wenyu noticed that Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were looking around as they walked. He couldn't help but look at Ren Ziheng and asked, Ren Ziheng, what are you looking for? Hearing this, Ren Ziheng smiled slightly, nothing, we're just looking around. Xiao Wenyu looked at Ren Ziheng suspiciously. Apparently, he did not believe his answer, but in his heart, he could not understand. There was nothing else in this place. What could Bailey Hongzhuang and her party be looking for? Noticing the suspicious look on Xiao Wenyu's and the rest's faces, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but explain, they're helping me look for something. Oh. Xiao Wenyu was a little surprised. I wonder what junior sister Bailey is looking for. Why don't we help look for it too? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly, actually, I don't know what I'm looking for either. Hearing this, Xiao Wenyu and the rest couldn't help but be stunned. Disbelief was written all over their faces. Junior sister Bailey, what do you mean? I don't understand. I'm just wondering what kind of medicine can restrain the power of darkness. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged. According to my judgment, this thing should be growing in the training grounds. It's a pity that there's nothing else here other than the soil. But I still haven't given up, so I want to look around. Everyone in Penglai Palace already knew that she made healing medicine. This reason was also the most convincing at this moment. Sure enough, when Bailey Hongzhuang said this, Xiao Wenyu and the others immediately understood. I see. Xiao Wenyu showed a look of understanding. Junior sister Bailey is really a genius doctor. No one in Penglai Palace has been able to develop such a healing medicine for so many years. Junior sister Bailey was able to develop it so quickly. I believe you will be able to find a way to completely restrain it. Senior brother Xiao, you flatter me. Bailey Hongzhuang clasped her hands together. I'm also trying to think of a way to find the catalyst. Then I'll also pay attention to it. I hope I can be of help. Thank you. Withdrawing her gaze, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but raise her eyebrows at Di Beichen. Her expression revealed a bit of playfulness and pride. My wife's means of scaring people have become more and more refined recently. Di Beichen praised. Chapter 39-46. In the next 2 days, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were safe and sound. They did not see the skeleton army. Regarding this, no one was too happy, especially Xiao Wenyu and the rest. They wanted to use this opportunity to follow Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest to earn more points, but they did not expect that they would not meet the skeleton army. Naturally, this idea did not succeed. It was a pity. However, during these 2 days, they did meet some cultivators from other teams. Unfortunately, they were not from Penglai Palace but from other factions. After everyone met, they did not say anything and just went their separate ways. After all, as long as there were no past grudges, no one was willing to cause more trouble here. I didn't expect our luck to be so good these few days. We didn't meet the skeleton army again. He Bingrui could not help but sigh. Every time she came to this training ground, she couldn't help but be on tenterhooks. After all, the slightest carelessness could cause her to lose her life here. Thus, every time she passed a day without incident, she felt extremely lucky. Maybe the skeleton army knows how powerful junior brother D and the rest are, so they didn't dare to show themselves these 2 days, Xiao Wenyu joked. It's just a coincidence. Di Beichen said, although the probability of meeting the skeleton army here is very high, it's not something you can meet every day. Indeed, but we have been here for so long and have not met the thing that junior sister Bailey is looking for. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled with an indifferent expression. I'm just looking for it on the way. I also know that it's not easy to find this thing. The people from 100 Flowers Gate have not found it after searching for so long, so how could I find it so easily? That's true. The people from 100 Flowers Gate have always been searching for something in this training ground. However, after so long, they have not found anything. Could it be that there is nothing? Xiao Wenyu asked curiously. From what I see, I'm afraid there is nothing. He Bingrui said, not a single blade of grass grows in this place. Other than soil, there are only skeletons and bones. How could there be anything growing here? Su Yingxue also agreed, this does not seem like a place where there would be a guiding herb. It doesn't matter if you can't find it. Bailey Hongzhuang's smile was bright and sunny, and her posture was natural and unrestrained. I just think that everything grows according to its own laws. Usually, the guiding drug will appear where it is produced. However, there are always accidents, and I can't be sure. Junior sister Bailey, I think you should start from other places. Even if you go around the entire training ground, I'm afraid it will be useless. Su Yingxue looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with jealousy in the depths of her eyes. In the past 2 days, she had been looking for opportunities to communicate with Mo Yinjue. Unfortunately, Mo Yinjue could not be bothered with her. On the contrary, Mo Yinjue treated Bailey Hongzhuang extremely well. Although she did not have any evidence, she instinctively felt that Mo Yinjue treated Bailey Hongzhuang differently. This was because when Mo Yinjue had communicated with Shengguan Yingying, his gaze had not been gentle at all. It was obvious that Mo Yinjue had a better relationship with Bailey Hongzhuang. This was a woman's intuition. Chapter 39-47. As she spoke, Su Yingxue couldn't help but give He Bingrui a look. He Bingrui immediately said, yeah, it's useless for us to walk around here. Why don't we stop and rest here? In the past 2 days, in fact, they didn't need to walk around at all, but because Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to find the guiding herbs, they had been wandering around the area, but they didn't have any results. To them, this kind of aimless walking was purely a waste of time. After all, skeletons wouldn't appear during the day at all. Normally, they would rest together during the day, but now that they were in a team with Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, they had no choice but to follow them. Hearing He Bingrui's words, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but look at Di Beichen. She could also vaguely feel that Su Yingxue and He Bingrue's words were directed at her. However, as a cultivator, walking this path shouldn't be tiring. Moreover, finding the guiding herb was just a side trip. Their main goal was to find the thing that caused the skeletons to evolve. Senior sister He, if you want to rest, then rest here. We'll look around again, Bailey Hongzhuang said. If you want to look around, then look around. The rest of us will rest here. After saying that, He Bingrue directly sat down on the ground. Clearly, she didn't plan to continue searching around here. After He Bingrue sat down, Su Yingxue also sat down. She was a little dissatisfied with Bailey Hongzhuang. Clearly, finding the guiding herb was only Bailey Hongzhuang's task, but she had to drag so many people to help her. It must be known that even if the medicinal catalyst was found, only Bailey Hongzhuang could get the benefits. It was said that this time, Bailey Hongzhuang gave the prescription of the healing medicine to Penglai Palace and obtained a lot of benefits from it. Looking at He Bingrue and Su Yingxue's actions, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't care. She immediately continued walking forward with Di Beichen and the others. They had their own plans, and since Su Yingxue and the rest weren't their teammates, they naturally couldn't force them. Xiao Wenyu felt helpless when he saw what Su Yingxue and the other man did. In fact, he also hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang would be able to find a medicine that could restrain the dark energy. Although they would not be able to gain any benefits from the prescription, if Bailey Hongzhuang could concoct such a medicine, it would be greatly beneficial to them. Moreover, if they could help find her, Bailey Hongzhuang would definitely remember their kindness. Many cultivators were willing to accept the kindness of a genius doctor. However, it was a pity that Su Yingxue and Li Mu were delicate people to begin with. Now that they were quarreling like this, he couldn't ignore his teammates, so he could only stop helplessly. Ren Ziheng and the rest couldn't help looking at one another. Over the past 2 days, everyone had gotten along pretty well, so they hadn't expected Su Yingxue and Qin Wentian to suddenly throw a tantrum. They were here to help Xiao Wenyu and the others. Since the other party had decided to stop and rest, they let them be. After all, they couldn't be blamed for this. After Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen took a step forward, Ren Ziheng and the rest followed. Chapter 39-48. This was because they realized that everyone in Bailey Hongzhuang's team had left with her. From the start to the end, Bailey Hongzhuang did not say a single word. She did not even open her mouth to explain, and the others just followed her. This scene was completely different from what the two of them had imagined. For a moment, the two of them were dumbfounded. When Xiao Wenyu saw this scene, he felt extremely helpless. He had long realized that in this team, although Ren Ziheng was the leader in name, the real leader was not Di Beichen or Mo Yinjue, but Bailey Hongzhuang. There were only 3 Starlight Realm cultivators. Bailey Hongzhuang was Di Beichen's wife, so it was needless to say that Di Beichen would protect her. As a man, Mo Yinjue would naturally give in to Bailey Hongzhuang. Under such circumstances, it was naturally Bailey Hongzhuang who made the decision. Now that it was Bailey Hongzhuang who was looking for something, the people in their team naturally did not have any complaints. All of you are leaving. Su Yingxue could not help but feel anxious when she saw this scene. This was not what she had expected. She only hoped that after her and He Bingrue's suggestion, everyone would agree with them and stay. In this way, Bailey Hongzhuang would lose some face and Su Yingxue's heart would feel a little better. However, not only did she not lose face for Bailey Hongzhuang, she lost face for herself instead. Hearing Su Yingxue's words, Ren Zime could not help but reply, "We plan to continue searching. You guys can rest here. We will come back later to reconcile with you guys. If all of you leave just like that, what will happen to us?" Su Yingxue could not help but ask. "What do you mean?" "This. If we meet with danger, we don't have enough people. When she said this, Ren Zimei and the rest looked at each other and asked, then what do you think we should do? Su Yingxue was a little embarrassed. She naturally hoped that everyone would stay behind and let Bailey Hongzhuang search alone, but she obviously couldn't say that out loud. What Yingxue means is that we don't have enough people here. If we encounter any danger, we might not be able to handle it. Why don't you leave behind a Star Radiance Realm cultivator? That way, we will have more protection. He Bingrue immediately helped Su Yingxue smooth things over. Su Yingxue nodded her head repeatedly and praised He Bingrue's quick thinking. That's right. That's what I meant. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other. There were only 3 of them in the group who were at the Astral Radiance Realm. Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang were a pair, so they naturally couldn't be separated. Obviously, the person He Bingrue was referring to was Mo Yinjue. Mo Yinjue was obviously aware of this, but he didn't pay any attention to it. He walked forward and told everyone his decision with his actions. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest also ignored her. Although Su Yingxue didn't have any major problems, she had quite a bit of princess syndrome. There was really no need for them to serve her. Shengguan Yingying and the rest's faces turned cold. They weren't stupid and naturally understood Su Yingxue's original plan. They couldn't help but find it laughable. He was just an outsider, yet he wanted to separate their group. It was simply a fantasy. Chapter 39-49. When Su Yingxue and the rest saw Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest leave without a care, their faces instantly turned ugly. Yingxue, Bingrue, what are you doing? Xiao Wenyu frowned and looked at Su Yingxue and He Bingrue in confusion. He couldn't understand their actions at all. Nothing, I just feel that it's meaningless to walk around like this. Rather than that, why don't we rest here for a while so that we can be in better condition at night, Su Yingxue said angrily. When she thought of Mo Yinjue's cold appearance, she couldn't help but feel gloomy. She was about to die from anger. Hearing this, Xiao Wenyu sighed, there's no point in telling me these excuses. Isn't it all for junior brother Mo? From what I see, junior brother Mo isn't someone who can be moved so easily. I think you shouldn't waste your efforts. As a man, he understood how a man felt the most. Although Xiao Wenyu wasn't familiar with Mo Yinjue, he could tell from Mo Yinjue's actions that he wasn't interested in Su Yingxue at all. Otherwise, he wouldn't have acted like this. How do you know? He Bingrue retorted, maybe Mo Yinjue is cold on the outside but warm on the inside. He just doesn't show it. That's all I have to say. If you don't believe me, I can't do anything about it. I just hope that you don't keep hitting a wall. Furthermore, if you really like a man, your actions won't make him like you. On the contrary, you'll only make him hate you. I advise you not to use this method in the future. After saying this, Xiao Wenyu didn't wait for He Bingrue and Su Yingxue to reply. He immediately closed his eyes and started cultivating. He was very clear that it was meaningless to argue with women. He just said what he wanted to say. Seeing Xiao Wenyu like this, Su Yingxue and He Bingrue looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with indignation. I didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to have such a high position in their team. Our actions have indeed miscalculated, He Bingrue couldn't help but say. Su Yingxue nodded, indeed, but I believe that we will find a way. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest walked a distance away, Shengguan Yingying couldn't help but say, Su Yingxue and He Bingrue really think that they're important. They actually want us to stay behind to accompany them. Dream. I don't have a good influence on them to begin with. And now they did this. Could it be that they think that in our hearts, her position is more important than Hong? Ren Zimei also nodded helplessly. Su Yingxue indeed has the temper of a young lady. The things she does make people feel helpless. In my opinion, we should just ignore them and not go back. It's best if they encounter the skeleton army at night. Let's see if she can still throw a tantrum, Shangguan Yingying said coldly. That's that. Xiao He nodded her head in agreement. She then jumped onto Mo Yinjue. Mo Yinjue, I don't have a good impression of Su Yingxue. Don't fall for her. Xiao He. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately pulled Xiao He back. Why are you getting involved in this matter? Chapter 3950. Then we can be at ease, Baisher couldn't help but say. Otherwise, Su Yingxue and He Bingrui will be two different problems and we won't have any peace in the future. At that moment, Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but say, what Baisher said makes sense. If we want to find someone, we should find someone who is more sensible. One of them has the temper of a missy and the other wants to see the world burn. With these two people in the team, our team will definitely be divided. Indeed, I think Su Yingxue wants to split our team. I really hope they can go back soon. It's really troublesome to stay in the same team. Ren Zimei shrugged her shoulders. Even though she had to help Su Yingxue and the rest due to their relationship as fellow sect members, Xiao Wenyu and the rest were still fine, but Su Yingxue and He Bingrui didn't feel that they had been saved at all. On the contrary, they even thought of themselves as important people. She didn't have a good impression of these girls who were always pampered by others. After interacting with them for 2 days, she felt even more strongly. She couldn't understand what they were thinking at all. Di Beichen and the others looked at the speechless faces of Shangguan Yingying and Ren Zimei, and a smile appeared in their eyes. As men, they naturally wouldn't talk about it. However, they had to admit that Su Yingxue and He Bingrui were really troublesome. If we can meet other teams, let's let them form a team. I believe the other teams will be very happy, Ren Ziheng couldn't help but say. Actually, he didn't expect Su Yingxue and He Bingrui to be so troublesome. After all, everyone was willing to form a team with them because they cared about his reputation and situation. It was because of this that he felt even more embarrassed. Otherwise, they wouldn't have bothered about this trouble at all. I hope so, Shangguan Yingying sighed. Speaking of which, it's weird. We've been wandering around here for so long, but why haven't we met a single team? This place is close to the center. There aren't many cultivator teams that can come here, so it's normal that we haven't met any, Chu Jinfeng replied. Su Yingxue is really something. Since she knows it's dangerous to stay here with her abilities, why didn't she just go to the periphery? Wouldn't that be more convenient? As she spoke, Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but pat her head. I almost forgot that their main purpose of teaming up with us is still Yunju. Hearing this, Mo Yunjue's expression revealed a hint of helplessness. Let's not talk about this, when Xiren laughed, now that there are only people in our team, it's a good time to relax. We've been looking for it for so long, but we still haven't found it. If this thing really exists, would it be closer to the center? Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but ask. As soon as she said this, everyone's expression couldn't help but pause. After thinking about it carefully, they also felt that what Bailey Hongzhuang said was very possible. That's quite possible. Ren Ziheng nodded, but we are now quite close to the center. If we continue to go in, there will be skeletons everywhere. Even if our team goes in, it will be very dangerous. Chapter 3951. We have to take our time to consider this matter. Ren Ziheng's expression was rather solemn. If we want to go there, cultivators below the Starlight Realm like us won't be able to. Furthermore, we can't leave Xiao Wenyu and the rest behind for the time being. After listening to Ren Ziheng's consideration, Bailey Hongzhuang also understood that it was indeed unrealistic to go there to take a look. Unless Ren Ziheng and the rest all stayed behind and only the three of them went. Since that's the case, why don't we go and take a look next time? If that thing really exists, it probably won't disappear anytime soon. Bailey Hongzhuang said. If they wanted to go, it would be best for the three of them to go alone. Now that they were in the inner part of the training ground, if the three of them were not around, Xiren and the rest would be in great danger. It was better to put this plan aside for the time being. All right. Di Beichen nodded. Since these skeletons have been evolving for such a long time, there's no need for us to be in a hurry for the time being. Let's walk around nearby. If we don't find it, we'll come back next time. Junior brother D, junior sister Bailey, we've dragged you down. Ren Ziheng's face was somewhat apologetic as he spoke. Ever since they met Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest, logically speaking, they were the senior brothers and sisters. They should be the ones taking care of Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest. However, in reality, ever since they first met, not only did they not help Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest much, it was instead Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest who had been taking care of them all this time. This was something that they really felt abnormally ashamed of. Hearing Ren Ziheng's words, Di Beichen could not help but say, "Senior brother Ren, what are you saying? How are we a burden? If you didn't team up with us, we wouldn't know anything about this training ground. That would be really troublesome." Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest nodded. That's right. If you didn't lead us, we would be like headless flies here. I'm afraid we wouldn't even be able to find the route. After hearing Di Beichen's words, Ren Ziheng's group of three, who were originally filled with guilt, felt much better. They understood that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others said this to not make them feel ashamed, but they also knew that the other party really treated them with sincerity and never felt that they were troublesome. They couldn't help but feel gratified. It's good that you don't mind. Actually, we are very sorry in our hearts. Chu Jinfeng could not help but say. Everyone smiled faintly and continued their search. Regardless of whether they could find it or not, they took it as a chance to relax and didn't want to go back too early. Xiao Wenyu and the rest sat down to rest. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest had left for some time, Su Yingxue and He Bingrui couldn't help but examine their surroundings. They wondered why Mo Yinjue and the rest hadn't returned after so long. Bingrui, do you think they won't come back? Su Yingshue's expression was rather ugly. It was fine if her suggestion failed, but if Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest didn't come back just like that, their situation would be terrible. Hearing this, He Bingrui pondered for a moment before shaking her head. I don't think so. They agreed to form a team with us. Before they meet any other teams, they probably won't abandon us. Chapter 3952. I don't know why they left for so long. It's been almost 4 hours. Did they encounter any danger? He Bingrui's expression was complicated. Logically speaking, the other party shouldn't have left just like that, but wasn't it a little too long? Hearing Su Yingxue and He Bingrui's conversation, Xiao Wenyu opened his eyes and said, they teamed up with us because they wanted to help us, but you guys just had to cause trouble. Even if they really abandoned us and left, it's still reasonable. In fact, Xiao Wenyu was also very helpless. He wanted to use this opportunity to build a good relationship with Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest. After all, Ren Ziheng had gained many benefits after becoming good friends with Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest. Not only that, Ren Ziheng and the rest also became closer to Instructor Yi. According to his judgment, the three of them were not far away from getting contracted beasts. This was their advantage. Moreover, when Bailey Hongzhuang developed the healing medicine, she gave it to them immediately. That was why Ren Ziheng was able to survive that dangerous situation. He was also in the team at that time and witnessed the power of the healing medicine with his own eyes. Ever since that incident, he was very envious. It was a pity that he didn't have such an opportunity. Now that the opportunity had finally come, it was ruined by Su Yingxue and Su Yingxue. One could imagine how depressed he was. However, Su Yingxue had mastered the art of sound attack. He had spent a lot of effort to recruit her into the team, so he couldn't give up on her. He could only watch as the opportunity slipped away from him. Senior brother Xiao, what do you mean? He Bingrui frowned. Actually, Yingxue and I didn't do anything. Both of you are well aware of what the two of you are thinking. I won't say anything more. However, if they return later, both of you should obediently cooperate with them and don't cause any more trouble. Xiao Wenyu sighed and said. Hearing Xiao Wenyu's words, Su Yingshue's expression turned ugly. Senior brother Xiao, we didn't cause any trouble at all. Could it be that we were wrong? I've been wandering around aimlessly for the past 2 days. It's nothing more than a waste of time. There's nothing wrong with me wanting to take a break. Seeing that Su Yingxue was still unwilling to admit her inner thoughts, Xiao Wenyu couldn't help but shake his head. It's your business that you like Mo Yunjue, but since Mo Yunjue is a member of their team, aren't you making things difficult for Mo Yunjue by doing this? Xiao Wenyu really couldn't understand these women. Not only was this way of pursuing people unlikable, but it also made people even more unwilling to pay attention to them. The moment he said that, Su Yingxue couldn't help but hold her breath, suppressing the words she was about to say. In fact, she had already realized this. Ever since she had made this suggestion, Mo Yunjue had looked at her with an even colder gaze. Not only that, it seemed that even the other cultivators in Bailey Hongzhuang's team had some opinions about her, which made her very depressed. However, since things had already developed to this point, she had no other choice but to stubbornly deny it. Chapter 3954. Hearing the footsteps, Su Yingxue and the rest couldn't help but turn around to look at the people who had come. As expected, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest had returned. When Lin Mingtao noticed that Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were also there, a hint of astonishment appeared in his eyes. When he saw that Su Yingxue and the rest had an indifferent expression, he understood a little more. No wonder Su Yingxue and the rest weren't too happy when he suggested forming a team. It turned out that they already had a goal in mind. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were in the limelight when they returned this time. Even Duan Huali had been forced to his death by them, so everyone knew that they had already reached the Starlight Realm. In comparison, his team couldn't be compared to Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest. At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest also noticed the appearance of Lin Mingtao and the rest, and their eyes instantly lit up. Wasn't the reason why they had been in a team with Su Yingxue and the rest because they were worried about their safety? Now that other teams had appeared, if they were willing to form a team with them, they wouldn't have to continue staying together. So you guys already have someone to team up with. Lin Mingtao couldn't help but laugh. He then turned around and cupped his hands towards Di Beichen and the rest. Ren Ziheng, I didn't expect to meet you guys here. A smile appeared on Ren Ziheng's face. It's good to meet you guys here. Hearing that, Lin Mingtao was slightly stunned. What do you mean? I didn't know you wanted to meet me so much. Hee hee. Ren Ziheng chuckled. Xiao Wenyu and the rest needed a team to form a team, and we were also helping to find one. Now that you guys are here, isn't it just nice? Oh. Lin Mingtao sized up Ren Ziheng and Xiao Wenyu with an astonished gaze, thinking to himself that the situation was completely different from what he had imagined. He originally thought that they had already formed a team, but from the current situation, it seemed like Xiao Wenyu was very willing to form a team with Ren Ziheng and the rest, but Ren Ziheng and the rest had no intention of forming a team with Xiao Wenyu's team. If he was not wrong, that should be the case. As Ren Ziheng's voice fell, Xiao Wenyu felt a wave of helplessness in his heart. He had already expected such a situation to occur. From the moment Lin Mingtao appeared, he had hoped that Lin Mingtao and the others would leave as soon as possible. Once Ren Ziheng and the others saw them appear, they would definitely make such a decision. But they just appeared, and he'd asked them to leave, so it was undoubtedly a little impolite. But it just so happened that things were so coincidental. Ren Ziheng and the others had returned at this moment, and this situation was within his expectations. Although they were somewhat unwilling, there was nothing they could do. After all, they were the ones in the wrong. Compared to Xiao Wenyu who had expected this, Su Yingshue's expression became extremely ugly. She didn't want to be separated from Mo Yinjue just like that. Why? Su Yingxue couldn't help but ask. Hearing Su Yingshue's words, Ren Zimei said, "Junior sister Su, we formed a team because there were fewer people in your team and it wasn't safe here. Now that your friends have appeared, it's naturally more suitable for you to form a team. We can also go to other places to take a look so as to not tire you out." Chapter 39:55. Su Yingxue originally wanted to retort, but when she heard Ren Zimei's last sentence, her face couldn't help but turn ugly. Obviously, the last sentence was referring to the fact that she had to stop and rest. It seemed like the other party's dissatisfaction towards her was because of this matter. Thinking about it carefully, what Xiao Wenyu said before was right. "Senior sister, what do you mean?" He Bingrue couldn't help but frown. "You guys have been wandering around for the past 2 days to help Bailey Hongzhuang find things. We feel a little tired and want to stop and rest. Is that not okay?" Seeing He Bingrue actually questioning her, Ren Zimei's face instantly turned gloomy. However, she still controlled her temper and didn't get angry. "I didn't say there was a problem. It's just that your method is different from our team's. Instead of both parties feeling tired, why not split up and find a more suitable team? Isn't that better?" This He Bingrue is really biting Lu Dongbin's hand. Previously, we helped them for 2 days. Not only did they not show any gratitude, they are actually criticizing senior sister Ren. What a joke. Shengguan Yingying's eyes shone with disgust. She hated this kind of ungrateful people the most. Their way of doing things was very annoying. Seems like our decision was right. When Xiren couldn't help but spread out his hands, luckily, someone has appeared to pick up the mess. We don't have to bother with them in a while. A rat's poop spoils the whole pot of porridge, Ao Lingxiao couldn't help but say. Speaking of which, there wasn't anything wrong with Xiao Wenyu and the rest, so he didn't feel uncomfortable teaming up with them. The only troublesome ones in the team were Su Yingxue and He Bingrue, the 2 girls. Hearing Ao Lingxiao's words, Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but burst out laughing. She turned her head and gave Ao Lingxiao a thumbs up. "What you said is really reasonable. You hit the nail on the head. I admire you." Ao Lingxiao couldn't help but laugh. "There's no other way. After thinking about it, this is the most appropriate description." Although Su Yingxue didn't know what Shangguan Yingying and the rest were talking about, she noticed that they were still laughing at such a time. Her mood couldn't help but become even worse. Could it be that Shangguan Yingying and the rest were actually so happy to be separated from them? "Senior sister Ren, I have always been very respectful to you, and I didn't do anything wrong during this entire process. Isn't it too heartbreaking for you to despise me like this?" Su Yingxue said coldly. Seeing Su Yingshue's unwillingness to let her go, Bailey Hongzhuang's brows slightly furrowed and a trace of impatience in the depths of her eyes. "Senior sister Su, senior sister Ren doesn't dislike you." Bailey Hongzhuang spoke up. "She to is to Yingshue's to her to Yingxue. To Ito Yingshue's, not to Yingyingsu. To Ito." Once she said that, the expressions of Di Beichen and the rest changed. In the next instant, just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to continue speaking, Di Beichen pulled her behind him and looked at Su Yingxue coldly. Chapter 39:56. Di Beichen didn't have a good impression of Su Yingxue to begin with, but he only felt that a girl's temper was a little troublesome, so he didn't pay much attention to it. After all, they wouldn't be in a team for long, so they would have to separate sooner or later. However, he never thought that Su Yingxue would actually dare to make things difficult for Bailey Hongzhuang. If it had been anything else, it would have been fine, but to dare speak to his wife like that was something he would never allow. Su Yingxue never thought that Di Beichen, who was usually very easy to get along with, would actually say such ruthless words. For a moment, she was stunned on the spot, unable to react. When Xiao Wenyu saw the conflict between Su Yingxue and Di Beichen, he couldn't help but have a bad feeling in his heart. It was fine if they had just separated, but he never thought that such a thing would happen at the very last moment. Di Beichen's serious look didn't seem like he was joking. Even though he wasn't familiar with Di Beichen and the rest, he knew that Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang had an extremely good relationship. He didn't know if Su Yingxue's brain had gone haywire, but she actually dared to go against Bailey Hongzhuang. Wasn't she just looking for trouble? Not to mention Di Beichen's power, Bailey Hongzhuang was also a cultivator of the Starlight Realm. If she offended Bailey Hongzhuang, once Bailey Hongzhuang got angry and killed her, it would be something that no one could control. Junior brother Di, calm down first. Xiao Wenyu immediately stood in between Di Beichen and Su Yingxue, stopping their conflict from erupting. Junior sister Bailey, this matter is all Su Yingxue's fault. You are a magnanimous person, so don't hold it against her. She has such a temper and doesn't care about anyone when she speaks, so it's easy for her to offend people. I apologize to you on her behalf. Xiao Wenyu looked at Bailey Hongzhuang apologetically. He knew very well that whether this matter could be resolved or not depended on Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude. Di Beichen was protecting Bailey Hongzhuang. If Bailey Hongzhuang cared about this matter, there would be no room for negotiation. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Xiao Wenyu indifferently. Every injustice had its perpetrator and every debt its debtor. She was not a person who liked to get angry easily. Naturally, she would not vent her anger on Xiao Wenyu. Senior brother Xiao, you have such a troublemaker in your team. You must be having a hard time being the team leader. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xiao Wenyu's expression was a little helpless. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. His eyes could not help but look at Ren Ziheng. He only hoped that Ren Ziheng could also come out and be a peacemaker. He could see that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others still valued Ren Ziheng very much. However, Ren Ziheng ignored Xiao Wenyu's gaze. He already felt very guilty towards Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest. Now that Su Yingxue had done such a thing, if he still wanted to be a peacemaker, then there was something wrong with his brain. Di Beichen's expression was cold. I won't say anything else. First, I apologize. Su Yingxue stood on the spot in a daze. She had only said those words in a moment of anger. She didn't expect that it would lead to such an outcome. Di Beichen and the rest's attitude made her feel a chill in her heart. She didn't know what to do and could only look at Mo Yinjue for help. Chapter 39:57. When Mo Yinjue noticed that Su Yingxue was actually looking at him with a pleading gaze, the coldness in his eyes became even more intense. He only wanted to protect Bailey Hongzhuang, yet Bailey Hongzhuang had been wronged because of him. One could imagine the anger in his heart. In Penglai Palace, there were quite a number of women who had a good impression of him, but the only one who could make him so disgusted was Su Yingxue. If you don't apologize, then I'll just kill you, Mo Yinjue said indifferently, his deep eyes filled with coldness and disgust. Once he said that, everyone present couldn't help but gasp. Their astonished gazes landed on Mo Yinjue. No one had expected him to take Su Yingshue's life the moment he opened his mouth. Wen Ziren and Shengwan Yingying couldn't help but look at each other, their gazes filled with astonishment. They had long known that Mo Yinjue, as the young master of Elysium, was naturally decisive in killing people. He could even be said to kill without batting an eyelid, but they hadn't expected him to be so decisive. No matter what, Su Yingxue was a woman who admired him. Normally, men would be more tolerant of women who admired them, but they had never seen this in Mo Yinjue. On one hand, it proved that he indeed didn't have any good impression of Su Yingxue. On the other hand, it also proved how important Bailey Hongzhuang was in his heart. When Ren Ziheng and the rest saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had been bullied, Di Beichen had immediately stood up. His attitude of protecting his wife was extremely obvious, but they hadn't expected Mo Yinjue to be so ruthless as well. Although Su Yingshue's way of doing things was wrong, it was only a verbal conflict with Bailey Hongzhuang. Di Beichen and Mo Yinjue had the intention to kill because of this. This wasn't a normal kind of protection, it was a reverse scale. Su Yingxue was completely dumbfounded as she stared at Mo Yinjue in a daze. It was one thing for Di Beichen to show such an attitude since Bailey Hongzhuang was his wife, but for Mo Yinjue to do the same, it was too unbelievable. She had been hoping that Mo Yinjue would open his mouth to help her end the situation, but never had she expected that not only did Mo Yinjue not have the slightest intention of helping her out, he even said that he would take her life. An indescribable gloominess exploded in Su Yingshue's heart. She had never expected such an outcome. She only felt that her passion had been extinguished and that someone had ruthlessly stabbed her heart with a knife. That kind of uncomfortable feeling made it hard for her to breathe. At that instant, Su Yingxue only felt her face burning. Everything she had done before was like a few ruthless slaps to her face. She thought that she could be different in Mo Yinjue's heart, but Mo Yinjue's words told her deeply that not only was she not different, she couldn't even be compared to a stranger. Thinking back to how she had tried to curry favor with him, Su Yingxue really wanted to dig a hole in the ground. This kind of feeling was even more unbearable than killing her. Mo Yinjue, aren't you going overboard? He Bingrue looked at Mo Yinjue in disbelief. Although she had always thought that he was a very cold person, she had never expected him to be so cold-blooded. Yingxue is so nice to you and you actually say that you want her life. Chapter 3958. Can't I? He Bingrue was stunned on the spot, unable to vent her anger. Facing Mo Yinjue's cold eyes, she could only feel that she couldn't speak. It was clearly a reasonable thing, but Mo Yinjue's question made her feel as if she was in the wrong. That was because his eyes were filled with wind, snow, and ice. There wasn't the slightest bit of warmth, making people feel as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. For some reason, they felt an indescribable pressure. At that moment, not only He Bingrue, but even Xiao Wenyu and the rest were dumbfounded. Previously, it was widely rumored that the newcomer Mo Yinjue had a cold personality. After interacting with him for 2 days, they had the same feeling. However, it wasn't until this moment that they realized that not only was Mo Yinjue cold, but he was also cold-blooded. After hearing Mo Yinjue's words, Su Yingshue's gaze couldn't help but fall on Bailey Hongzhuang. As a woman, she had sharp intuition. Long ago, she had already felt that Mo Yinjue treated Bailey Hongzhuang differently, but she couldn't find any evidence. Until the moment Mo Yinjue stood up for Bailey Hongzhuang, her feeling became even more obvious. That was because Mo Yinjue had shown that he cared too much. Previously, no matter what happened, Mo Yinjue had always been cold and indifferent. If Mo Yinjue cared a lot about each of his friends, then why didn't Mo Yinjue say anything when she spoke up for Renzime, but when she spoke up for Bailey Hongzhuang, Mo Yinjue immediately stood up and spoke so ruthlessly. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang, who was being protected by Di Beichen and Mo Yinjue, Su Yingxue only felt a wave of jealousy. Bailey Hongzhuang already had Di Beichen, so why was Mo Yinjue still protecting her like this? Compared to her own situation, was Bailey Hongzhuang really that good? Mo Yinjue, I only verbally offended Bailey Hongzhuang, do you have to be like this? Su Yingxue looked at Mo Yinjue with burning eyes. Her eyes were already bloodshot with tears, but she stubbornly refused to let them fall. Of course. Facing Su Yingxue's question, Mo Yinjue's answer was even more natural. To him, no one was more important than Bailey Hongzhuang. As long as someone dared to bully Bailey Hongzhuang, they would be his enemy. Everyone looked at this scene in a daze. Mo Yinjue's answer made them feel an indescribable discomfort. Logically speaking, an ordinary person would refute such a question, but Mo Yinjue had admitted it without any concealment, making them unable to continue speaking. When Xiao Wenyu saw the conflict becoming more and more intense, he immediately pulled Su Yingxue's sleeve and said, "Junior sister Su, stop fooling around. This matter was originally your fault, so you should quickly apologize." Su Yingxue stubbornly looked at Mo Yinjue and bit her lips tightly, unwilling to apologize. She was unwilling, because once she apologized to Bailey Hongzhuang, she would never be able to raise her head in front of Bailey Hongzhuang for the rest of her life. She simply couldn't endure such a feeling. Seeing Su Yingxue's attitude, Di Beichen's gaze turned cold and he said indifferently, "Looks like you don't want to apologize." Chapter 39-59. Junior brother Di, please don't be angry. Yingxue already knows her mistake. Xiao Wenyu hurriedly spoke up, his expression filled with nervousness. He was about to die from depression. Before Bailey Hongzhuang and the others came back, he had already warned Su Yingxue not to make trouble without reason. He didn't expect that Su Yingxue didn't listen to his words at all. Not only did she not give up, but on the contrary, she became even more serious, so that things had developed to this point. Di Beichen and the others were now a team that could not be provoked in this Penglai palace. As long as one had a little eyesight, they would understand that they absolutely could not offend them, otherwise, they would only be looking for trouble. Originally, it was fine if he couldn't use this chance to build a good relationship with Di Beichen and the rest, but now, not only could he not do so, he had even offended them. This was terrible. Junior sister Su, quickly apologize. Xiao Wenyu turned around and gave Su Yingxue a look. Compared to his previous concern, his current attitude had turned into a warning. He lowered his voice and said, "If you still don't apologize, I won't be able to protect you." Su Yingxue was a member of their team, so he naturally wanted to protect her. However, if Su Yingxue continued to be so stubborn, he naturally wouldn't offend Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest for her. This was because losing Su Yingxue was just a small loss to their team. However, if they offended Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest, it could very well be a disaster. Between the two, no matter who it was, they would choose to give up on Su Yingxue. After hearing Xiao Wenyu's words, Su Yingxue's eyes turned even redder. She only felt that she had suffered a great grievance, but now, everyone was forcing her to apologize. She wasn't willing to apologize, nor was she willing to lower her head to Bailey Hongzhuang. Otherwise, she would feel that she would forever lose to Bailey Hongzhuang. Senior brother Xiao, I understand your good intentions, but since Su Yingxue doesn't accept it, you don't have to waste your efforts anymore. Di Beichen said slowly. His eyes suddenly became sharp. Since we can't talk about reconciliation, then, when Bingrue saw that the situation had taken a turn for the worse, she hurriedly said to Su Yingxue, "Yingxue, they aren't joking. Apologize quickly, or else they might really kill you. Su Yingxue was originally going down a dead end, but after being shaken by He Bingrui, she came back to her senses. As soon as she raised her head, she saw Di Beichen's cold and sharp eyes. She couldn't help but shiver. Only now did she remember to be afraid. I apologize. Su Yingxue hurriedly said. No matter how unwilling she was, her life was naturally more important at a time when her life was at stake. When Xiao Wenyu and the rest saw that Su Yingxue finally understood the situation, they let out a sigh of relief. At least the situation hadn't developed to the worst stage. Lin Mingtao originally wanted to use this opportunity to woo Su Yingxue, but after seeing this scene, he didn't dare to make a sound and disturb them. In the inner hall, in terms of seniority, they were naturally higher than Di Beichen and the rest. However, in terms of limelight and potential, they were all inferior. Di Beichen and the rest were all favored by Lord Long and the Hall Master. Offending them wouldn't end well. Chapter 3960. After all, even if Su Yingxue had apologized, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest would definitely still hate her. Beauties were the best, but they weren't as important as their own benefits. Even though there weren't many cultivators who knew how to use sound attacks, it wasn't like there weren't any. However, if they were to offend 3 Starlight Realm cultivators, they wouldn't be able to eat or sleep in peace. Listening to Su Yingxue's words, Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue both looked at her coldly. They didn't say anything, obviously waiting for her to apologize. Seeing this, even if Su Yingxue didn't dare, she could only lower her head and apologize, I'm sorry. No sincerity. Seeing that Su Yingxue's voice was too soft, Sheng Guanying said coldly. Her attitude toward Su Yingxue was getting worse and worse, so she naturally wouldn't be polite with her words. She actually dared to make things difficult for Hongzhuang, she was really courting death. Bailey Hongzhuang also looked at Su Yingxue indifferently. She didn't have many thoughts about Su Yingxue and only felt that this girl had the temper of a missy, thinking that everyone had to give in to her. Since that was the case, she would let Su Yingxue understand that not everyone had to give in to her. If she did something wrong, she had to bear the responsibility. She had never liked this kind of girl who threw a tantrum, and the repeated incidents had already made her lose her patience. Now, she felt disgusted. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest had no intention of letting her off, Su Yingxue couldn't help but raise her voice and say again, Junior Sister Bailey, I'm sorry. Xiao Wenyu also stood out, Junior Sister Bailey, Junior Sister Su has already apologized. She already knows her mistake, so please forgive her. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang raised her head and looked at Xiao Wenyu before turning her gaze towards Su Yingxue. I originally didn't have the intention to bicker with you, but you have to be clear that no one has to endure your missy temper. Although I don't know where your sense of superiority comes from, no matter if it's your strength, identity, or appearance, you are mediocre, yet your temper is so big. Let me give you a piece of advice, rein in your temper as soon as possible. Otherwise, you might not even know how you died in the future. After saying this, Bailey Hongzhuang retracted her gaze and turned to Di Beichen and the rest, let's go. Di Beichen and the rest nodded their heads when they heard this, then turned and left with Bailey Hongzhuang. As for Su Yingxue, they felt an indescribable sense of disgust whenever they looked at her. After hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Su Yingxue's face was already ugly to the extreme, but because of the other party's strength, she could only endure it. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's contempt for her, she was simply angry. Strength, identity, appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang had brought up these 3 points without a doubt to mock her. However, looking at Su Yingxue's appearance, Xiao Wenyu wasn't willing to say anything more. He had already said what needed to be said, and he was also extremely dissatisfied with Su Yingxue. He was considered an old senior brother with a pretty good position in Penglai Palace, but now, he had to apologize for Su Yingxue, damaging his relationship with Ren Ziheng. The value of the loss was too great. Chapter 3961. Compared to Bailey Hongzhuang, Su Yingxue was indeed a far cry. Seeing Xiao Wenyu ignoring her, Su Yingxue instantly looked at Lin Mingtao unwillingly. "Senior brother Lin, am I wrong?" Lin Mingtao smiled awkwardly and said, "Junior sister Su, Xiao Wenyu, we still have some matters to attend to, so we'll leave first." After saying that, Lin Mingtao cupped his hands towards Xiao Wenyu and gave a signal to the cultivators in the team before turning around to leave. Seeing this, Su Yingxue couldn't help but be stunned. She hurriedly said, "Senior brother Lin, didn't you say you wanted to form a team with us? Why are you leaving just like that?" "I suddenly remembered that I have some urgent matters to attend to, so I won't be staying here for the time being. We plan to return first." Lin Mingtao smiled faintly. "Goodbye, junior sister pig." As he said that, Lin Mingtao left in a hurry. Since he had already decided to keep a distance from Su Yingxue and the rest, he naturally wouldn't continue to form a team with them. Otherwise, if Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest met them here, they would probably think that they were in the same group. Then, it would really be hard to explain. Seeing Lin Mingtao leave so quickly, Su Yingxue couldn't help but frown. "I didn't hear senior brother Lin say that he had something to do, so why is he behaving so strangely now?" Hearing Su Yingxue's muttering, Xiao Wenyu and the other cultivators in the team sneered inwardly. This woman was really a pig's head. Now, everyone could see that Lin Mingtao didn't have anything important to do. He was just avoiding them, so he left quickly. However, Su Yingxue couldn't see through this. She was simply too stupid. As she said that, Su Yingxue couldn't help but look at Xiao Wenyu. "Senior brother Xiao, senior brother Lin, they left just like that. What should we do? I'm afraid it won't be easy to find other teams here." "Let's go back too," Xiao Wenyu said weakly. Xiao Wenyu said weakly. He suddenly regretted inviting Su Yingxue to their team. Otherwise, this wouldn't have happened. "We're going back just like that?" Su Yingxue asked unwillingly. "If you want to continue staying here, I don't have any objections." Xiao Wenyu cast an indifferent glance at Su Yingxue and immediately turned to leave. It was already late, and if they continued to waste time here, the 6 of them wouldn't be able to defeat the skeletons if they met them at night. He believed that if he met Bailey Hongzhuang and the others again tonight, he was afraid that the other party would not save him again. So it would be safer to leave earlier. It was safer. The other cultivators immediately followed behind Xiao Wenyu and left. They were speechless to the extreme. If it wasn't for the fact that there were too few of them, they really wouldn't have bothered with Su Yingxue and Li Mu. And, no matter how unwilling she was, to leave the group to leave, the rest and the rest and the rest, the group, the rest, and the rest. So, she and the An and the rest. And the An and the rest and the rest. And, she and the others, they An and the rest, to leave leaving and the An and the them. Fortunately, He Bingrui was with her. An and the Lin. And the to be. To Lin and Lin's. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.